packed meeting-free day, full of information. So I'm going to recommend you get out your notepad or your iPad and pay attention, because we're going to give you a little bit of glimpse of what's happening in the industry today and a little peek about possibly what's coming around the corner. So to get things started, I'm going to introduce my 2016 president, Ms. Tricia Modern.
Thank you so much, Neil. We are very happy and lucky to have this amazing man that helps make all this happen. I want to take a little moment to thank you all for being here. And we're celebrating our 120th year, all this year of our service that we've been able to give back to the community and those that we serve, buyers and sellers throughout Santa Clara County. So I want to thank you for being a part of that. And also we have over here, if you haven't already seen, who's your realtor sign over here. I encourage you after the meeting, take a picture with it, post it on social media, and making sure you're contacting your spirit knows you're in the business. So we thank you so much for that. And I want to take a little bit of time to bring up Gene Hunt, who is a veteran and has served our country, to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So Gene, if you may bring us, thank you so much.
Okay, great. You all right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Gene. So up next, we have our fearless leader of CEO of MLS Listings, who was actually featured recently in the top 100 of Swanepoel's list, and one of the top 3 MLS CEOs in the nation. And of course, in our minds, he's number 1. Jim Harrison, the CEO and president of MLS Listings, to come and share a little report with us. Thanks so much.
So we've been focused pretty strongly in the last couple of years on getting data sharing accomplished. So we've been in, as you know, we're in a reciprocal linking agreement with the other MLSs in the Bay Area, but it's kind of awkward. You have to click over to another system, and it's not the same experience as having all the data in one place. And so we've been working really hard on getting more data sharing implemented. We did data share with CRMLS, so we have the listings for 80,000 realtors from Southern California in your matrix system today. And today we're working on actually on the East Bay. And so right now there's a goal between the 4 of us, between us and the 3 MLSs in the East Bay, to sign a data share agreement by tomorrow. And there's a schedule right now for their data to go live. We have their data already. We can toggle it on anytime we want, but we have to wait about 10 months for them to pull it into their Paragon system because their vendor has to do that. But as you know, there are too many MLSs in the country. I'm an MLS guy, and I'll tell you, there's too many of us. There shouldn't be 6 in the Bay Area. There's a bunch of walled gardens out there that we just really can't break down. And so the best move next is to aggregate the data. We can't aggregate or consolidate the MLSs, but we can get the data all in one place, and that's really what you should care about more than who owns or manages your MLS system. So we are trying to break the walls down to the political walls to brokers' data, and brokers around the country want more control of their data. They have a hard time right now getting their own data from MLSs because we all have different policies. You might think we're all the same because we all live by the model rules from NAR and CAR, but then there's, behind the walled garden, there are all these different rules about what you can do with your own data. And as you know, right now there's these problems where brokers want to aggregate their data and use it in whatever tool sets they choose for what they need to do with their data. They might want their own custom CMA, or they might have an AVM product or appraiser product or some tool that they're using that they need all their data, all their listing data from all the different MLSs their agents put listings in. And some MLSs will let them have their data, and some MLSs will tell a broker what they can and can't do with their own data. And so that's a very interesting problem for the brokers that are in multiple markets, because they're just running into all these obstacles. I know I was told that one of our large companies spends like $300,000 or $400,000 a year aggregating and normalizing data from the dozen or so MLSs they belong to. And that's crazy because it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that difficult, and it shouldn't be subjected to 10 different interpretations of what the NAR rules say. So some benefits to data sharing that I wanted to kind of hone in on is that when we're data sharing, that means we have their data in our IDX feeds, in our valve feeds, in our public portals, in the third-party products that you use that you would like to have data in. And it's true, you might not be working on selling real estate in Los Angeles because it's 500 miles away, but there are referral opportunities that are actively happening right now in these between Northern California and Southern California. So there's also, when all the data is aggregated, you have a little bit of economies of scale for negotiating for vendor products when we're negotiating on your behalf to pull tools into your marketplace. There's consolidated data in your mobile products. And we have we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we have an analytics product that we're rolling out that some of you in the room have beta tested for us. I know Jonathan has played with it in its early stages. It has a new visualization tool on it now called Quick Click View. That's really makes it simple to use. We're RESO compliant, which means that in our agreements to data share with the other MLSs, we're making a commitment to each other that we will adopt RESO guidelines. RESO is Real Estate Standards Organization. And NAR has actually created deadlines and rules for when MLSs become RESO compliant. And we're platinum certified. And the APIs that MLSs are required to adopt by June 1st are basically our APIs. We're on the committees that help them formulate the APIs, and so we will probably be the first RESO API certified MLS in the country because the APIs they adopted were ours. We're helping them debug their certification tool that they're using to certify MLSs for being RESO API certified. And what's important about that is when we take the RESO API, and they changed it a little bit, so we have to make some changes to our platform. As we put that on top of our RESO Platinum certified server, distributing data, providing data to brokers, vendors, third-party products becomes a lot more secure because you're just making a call for the data. We're no longer actually given 400 fields of data on every piece of property and their pictures to a third-party product, and then we're out of control of what happens to that data when it hits the internet. Instead, it resides on our servers, and we using our APIs and their APIs, people make a call for the information. And on the web, it looks the same as it did before, but in reality, it's a lot more secure, and it's a lot quicker, and it's a lot less overhead involved in maintaining data feeds when you're hitting servers using Microsoft APIs, which is what we're doing. So just to give you a little bit of just to give you a little bit of an update on one of the benefits of data sharing, we have your listings that you put into our system are replicated over to CRMLS in Southern California. And we also have reciprocal arrangements with Sandy Core, which is the San Diego area MLS, and with Claw, which is the Beverly Hills Malibu group. And so your data is being seen by 100,000 realtors, and they have clients, right? So your exposure, it's all about exposing your listings. Your exposure for your properties are huge. And then on our consumer website, we get 3 million page views a month for our 10,000 listings. That's pretty incredible. We have about 150 to 200,000 unique people that just constantly surf MLSlistings.com for data. And so data sharing turns into huge marketing benefits for you, for your properties. And so as you can see in the areas that we're data sharing, up here in the blue is the guys we have the reciprocal linking arrangements with. And we proposed a data share agreement to the 6 MLSs we're in the reciprocal linking arrangement with, and the eSpace said if the rest of the guys won't do it, we'll do it. And so we're going to go into data share with the eSpace, which means we'll have all their data in your matrix system. But we do still have linking arrangements down here with, and data sharing with a large part of Southern California. So close to 70% of all the residential listings in the state are already in your MLS system. And we didn't have to merge MLSs to accomplish that. Data sharing actually helped us accomplish that. So a few updates on some changes we've recently made. You can get pending listings in your data feeds now for your websites. We have actually doubled the character limit in public remarks. Area numbers are now being auto-populated except when an agent modifies them. And missing sales date, there's a business rule. People would put in a comp only listing because they sold it off the MLS and then they put it in for comp only, but they weren't given a sales date. And so we're now requiring sales date when they enter a comp only listing. And there was a problem with school district information missing. So we found out what the problem was and we backfilled it with all the listings that had missing school district data. In Matrix, we've added HomeSnap Pro has been added to the agent report, so you can actually text listing information to yourself with HomeSnap Pro. Only active tours are displayed and searchable. All CMAs are updated to display the modular home information that we've been working on with the surge groups lately. And you can now easily share your listings through Matrix on social media, which is new. And HomeSnap Pro has a Facebook app as well. If any of you using HomeSnap Pro? We've had about 4,000 of our subscribers download the app, and it's really pretty slick. You want to give it a look. I mean, there's a lot of apps out there. The RPR mobile app is really cool, and the Realtor.com mobile app is really cool. But when you download HomeSnap and then you log in with your subscriber information, you get the professional version of that product, which means you can click down on a listing agent on a property, and you can see all that agent's business. You can see all their transactions on the buy side, on the seller side, their list to sell ratios, just a variety of data. And it was interesting about this company because they were owned by a brokerage out of DC, and they had applied for data for their product, and they had told us that they were a real estate broker. Well, after a while, we realized they really weren't a real estate broker in our marketplace, and so we were in a legal debate with them. Because you can still get data if you're not a real estate broker. It's just that we don't charge brokers for data, but we charge vendors and third parties for data. And so we were in a debate with them, and DOJ was involved, and AR was involved. It was interesting where this was headed. And then Dave and I and Quincy were at a Inman conference, and one of my MLS friends suggested that I go look at the new version of the product. We went in there and we looked at it, and all of a sudden the enemy became our best friend again because it was a hell of a good product. And so today we actually pay for this product and make it available to you for, I'm not going to say it's for free because at 50 cents a month is actually coming out of your dues, but we made that a subscriber benefit. Now we've added Hot Sheet to Quick Search. And Agent Full, you have the option to include up to 100 pictures. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you can upload 100 pictures on your listings, and so you can include them on Agent Full right now as well. In listing management, we had, just to kind of back up a little bit, we instituted these surge groups about 1.5 years ago, and they're super user groups, so they're made up, and we have one from Santa Clara as well, and we have 7 of them. And we go to these groups and ask for feedback on what we need to do to the system. Now, the listing management platform we write ourselves, and so we can evolve that quicker. We have sprints every 3 weeks on the listing management platform. We're constantly making changes. We made over 400 separate individual changes to the MLS platform last year as a result of feedback from the user groups. So we as you can see, we doubled the character limit in public remarks. Area numbers are now auto-populated. The sales date, the school district information, HomeSnap button. This looks like a duplicate slide. All right, so customer support. I mean, we get feedback from the user groups. We get feedback from when you call customer support. Every phone call is a case in Salesforce, and it's opened up It's typed in. When you call us, the call center, whoever gets the call, your record pops up on their screen and they see who you are. And they start typing in what your question is and what the answer is, whether that resolve the question or not. And then my engineers mine the cases in Salesforce to look for trends or issues or software problems that might be coming up frequently, so that we know what to fix next and how to prioritize things. We also have portals in the system. So in listing management, there's an idea portal, and in Matrix, there's an idea portal, which means if you have an idea or a suggestion, and it doesn't matter whether you're on the user group or not, you can go online in those idea portals and give us your suggestions. And you can see suggestions other people have made, you can comment on them. It's kind of like Facebook for the MLS. And so I encourage you, when you have an idea, just go into listing management or Matrix and send it to us, because those are monitored every day. We changed how we calculate days on market. This was another feedback that actually kind of started at the board of directors level, where somebody said, well, it's really, somebody brought it up to a board member, and then a board member brought it up at a board of directors meeting. And so now, if your listing goes withdrawn, pending, or contingent, days on market stops counting. It doesn't count. You don't get punished while your contract is in suspense, while your listing is in suspense. Now, if it has to come back on the market, then it starts up, but you don't get counted for those days when it was really off the market. That was a direct. That was. Let's see. List Track is another product. It's kind of Google Analytics for your listings. We get data from List Track, we have little cookies in some of the data feeds, and so this is free to everybody. If you go into the MLS, List Track is right there. You can see where the arrow's pointing. And you can pull up the traffic stats on your listings at Trulia, at Realtor.com, at Zillow, at Homes.com. We gather that data and we put it in there for you, so you can see your traffic and you compare your traffic to other similar listings as well. And we delivered a new product recently called Rate Plug, and this was a result of Tom Plugnolly calling me and telling me to do it. So I've been avoiding Rate Plug for years, just because everybody wants to sell us something. I mean, we're not paying for this, but it's you can actually go into Rate Plug. You can go into and pick the lenders. You pick the ID of your lender of choice, and then they display live mortgage information into property reports, so that if you're passing out or emailing property reports, you can include financing information, like on this particular home, what's the HOA fees, what would the mortgage payment be at different interest rates. And so it's an interesting tool. It's brand new. We've promoted it a little bit. We need to promote it some more. We have about 4% adoption right now, but it's only been a month. But we expect long-term, probably 20% of our subscribers would use this product. We also have another new resource. It's called Home Source Professional. And so this is new home inventory. And we have a partnership with Bay Area News Group, and they publish articles for us in 14 different newspapers, and we give them recent sold data for the Mercury News and other publications. So the guy we were working with went and started this new company, and so it's a new revenue source for you. Now you have inventory of new homes that you can go into this system and look for. So it's an opportunity to have more data than just pre-owned listing data in your MLS system. So it's down here on the right side of your navigation bar. And then coming soon, we have a product that we're rolling out now, and it's a business intelligence tool. I don't know if any of you've used Terradatum or Broker Metrics or Trend Graphics or any of those products, but we have a product that's basically 3 products in one. Some are static reports where you can actually pull market reports on by school system or by zip code or by area number or by city name, and you can customize them, brand them to yourself. And so this is new. We're rolling this out this month right now, and then we have an interactive version of the tool that is kind of a real-time interactive product for those people who are real stat rats that really want to get immersed into dealing with the data. And we have about 30 brokers that are working with that product right now, giving us feedback. It's out of beta, and it's really pretty incredible. We hired a data scientist to work with us for 2 years, and we visited with brokers and managers. It's really the interactive product is something that was designed to support the needs of brokers and managers. I know Chris's office is piloting it. Ryan's using it, and Dave's played with it quite a bit. And it's called Oculus Edge. And so you hear more about that in the near future. Then I want to just focus on something near and dear to our hearts is all the off MLS marketing activity. And it looks like it peaked in 2013 at 26% of transactions happening off the MLS. And today it's at 17%, 17 and a quarter. So it's still happening. I mean, there always have been off MLS transactions, and there always will be. Pocket listings weren't invented in 2013. They've been around forever. As the inventory is increasing, we're seeing more people put their listings in the MLS. And if you look at the value of marketing your property through the MLS, if you look at Santa Clara County here, you get 20% more for the home when you market it through the MLS. And the reason we know this is we take Realist. It takes us about 10 user IDs to get all the data we want, but we go into Realist and we pull out all the transactions in every county. And then we look at the MLS, and we already know what all the transactions were through the MLS, and then we compare, and we come up with the percentage of homes and what they sold, median prices of what they sold for in the county records and in the MLS records. And so this is data where we have actually, CAR economists have played with this. They've looked at how we calculate these percentages, and they've bought off on it. And this is something that we've been a leader in the country of bringing this to light and making people aware of this activity, because clearly, there will always be sellers that, for whatever reason, just don't want their property in the MLS. There's often buyers that buy something and they want it out of the MLS. We don't do that, but we get a lot of those calls. But it's important to note, this is a good slide to use when you're taking listings with your clients, is that you're going to get a whole lot more for the house when you sell it through the MLS than if you sell it off the MLS. A little bit about upstream and AMP. Anybody ever heard of these terms before? Yes, Rick has, certainly Dave. Well, so conceptually, there's some broker-inspired initiatives, and brokers have, especially the large brokers, have kind of a common problem with data, because their agents put the listing into the MLS. Sometimes brokers belong to multiple MLSs because they have a wide footprint of the marketplace they work, and so their listings are being put into multiple MLSs, and then they got to get data feeds back from the MLSs, and they send those data feeds to their franchisor, to their marketing system, and to their CRM, and to their accounting system, and to these places that their vendors that they're using to syndicate their listings. And next thing you know, there's 10 data feeds going out from a broker, and they're often like a day behind as far as updating goes from what's happening actually in the MLS. And the concept around upstream, it's actually upstream from the MLS. And there's a lot of brokers that are participating in this initiative today. As you can see, it's kind of, the data is crisscrossing all sorts of ways. And tomorrow, with this product, and we're a pilot for this product, Pac Union is the broker we're piloting with. And in this scenario, an agent would enter the listing into Upstream, a different listing management platform than ours, and then it comes back to us, but at the same time, it goes to the other places the broker wants their data to go to. And so it helps the brokers organize the distribution of their data. Now, we have a broker control center in our MLS, and so we actually have a version of this that exists in our MLS, but that's not normal. In our broker control center, brokers can go in and say, send my data to Lone Wolf, send my data to wherever, whatever, to Zillow, to Trulia. We have those controls in place. This is that on steroids for a nationwide initiative. And almost every major real estate brand is committed to this initiative. They're really behind it. They're really looking forward to it. We're piloting it. That doesn't mean we're endorsing it, but it means that we we appreciate the effort, and we want to do anything we can to help. And that's where we're at. We're an alpha site, so we're one of the first 5 in the country to go to work with the brokers and RPR is the developer of the platform. It's working off the RPR property centric database, but it's a new application that's been written on top of RPR. And so it's, you spend a lot of money building up RPR. It's a very robust system. It's very property centric, and they really know what they're doing. They have some really good engineers, and they're very talented, and they've done some amazing work. And so I have every confidence in the fact that the technology side of this initiative is going to work because RPR is building it. And so in a nutshell, that's really all I had to talk about, but I'd be happy to spend a few minutes answering any questions anybody has. In a nutshell.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome.
Thank you. If you come up with any questions afterwards, always feel free to reach out to Jim or any of the contacts. Or actually, we have Myra in the back there. If you want to wave your hand, she is a woman that can answer all your questions. So if you, well, definitely she knows quite a bit. It can help you out. And if you have something that you'd like to bring to her attention, just give her your card and what your question or remark might be. Up next, we're going to have our NAR and CAR updates by a gentleman that I have a great respect for. He was our 2008 president here at SCORE. He is currently running for treasurer for our California Association of Realtors for 2018 treasurer. And if you haven't already, make sure you go on Facebook and become a fan, like his page, Dave Walsh for 2018 treasurer. You can definitely use our support here. CAR directors are the ones that vote for upcoming leadership, but to have that support from his hometown and community is greatly appreciated, and we're very excited to support him in his leadership path. So I'd like to bring forward Dave Walsh to give us our CAR and NAR reports.
Okay, so, one of the hats that I wear is vice chair of our MLS, and I have the privilege of serving with Jim and Quincy as your chairman, and I get to attend 4 or 5 different MLS conferences during the year across the nation. And I'll tell you, there's nobody like Jim Harrison. I know that some of the data he presents is kind of dry because it's MLS related data, but you go into a room with Jim Harrison, and it doesn't matter how big the conference is, it's MLS listings and it's Jim Harrison. We are very fortunate to have an MLS that is well run as it is, and as progressive as it is. And you kind of get a sense because of the questions that Jim gets asked wherever he goes. But you guys have a state-of-the-art MLS that is one of the best and most respected in the nation. And when Trish said he's one of the top 3 executives, really he's not, in my mind, number 1. And we're very fortunate. So Jim's up the room. So Myra, take that back to you. Okay, so any attorneys in the room? Okay, so realtors love great attorney jokes. So here's a great attorney joke. How many attorneys does it take to roof a house? How many attorneys does it take to roof a house? Just 1, but you have to slice them really thin. I didn't make it up. I attend 10 days of conferences. I get something on these conferences. Okay, so sick. It's not sick. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to report 10 days of information. We had conferences, believe it or not, 5 at the state capitol, 5 in Washington, D.C. We cover a ton of information. They give me 15 minutes to do this. You get 1.5. So for every day, you get 1.5 minutes of information here. And clearly, that's not enough. So I'm just going to hit the highlights because, quite frankly, it's just way too much to absorb anyway. Before that, I need to apologize. My wife makes cowboy coffee, what I call cowboy coffee, and I've had 3 cups this morning, so I'm going to go really fast. This will be recorded someplace. You can watch it at some point in time, so don't worry if you don't get the data down, but it's just important stuff to talk about. Okay, so there's a new ad campaign coming. Part of your dues, not an increase in dues, but part of your $120, whatever it is you pay for for NAR dues, goes to the Realtor ad campaign. And if you probably have seen some of these commercials recently, the Modern Family television show did a whole episode around Phil Dunphy being a realtor. And if you didn't see it, go to YouTube or go to Comcast, whatever it is, and watch that episode because he's wearing a realtor pin. The entire show, his wife even straightens it before it goes out the door and all these things. Anyway, they found that that campaign resonates greatly with the American public. And the whole theme of that particular show was there's a difference between a realtor and an agent. And they do it in the typical Modern Family way. It was really cute and clever in how they did that. But if you get a chance, log in and see it. Okay, so they also have a series of commercials. I don't know how I get this commercial to come up. So our technology people, of course, are going to make this happen. But here's a sample, quick 30-second commercial. There's a whole bunch of these things being released. And I just, this is kind of fun.
Home buyer is a no home buyer. Navigating the real estate world requires cat-like reflexes. No, that's too early. Requires cat-like reflexes. This isn't that hard, guys. When I say reflexes, what if I throw the ball back and you reverse it on film? Sexo, theater, Kyle Tack. Run that backwards. It's cat-like reflex.
Okay, so the public says that there's an 89% recognition of what a realtor does now because of Modern Family and Phil being a realtor, et cetera. So there's a whole series of these commercials coming out. Kind of a fun use of our dues finally. Not so boring like traditional real estate commercials. So I think this is a great campaign. Okay, we were back in Washington, D.C., clearly at the perfect presidential election year to be back in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the comments. So we had several pollsters speak to us. We had several major speakers. We had Elizabeth Warren. We had, Bob Woodward from the Woodward-Bernstein fame. We had Charlie Cook, et cetera. So these guys all have insights as to what's going to happen in the presidential election. So I thought I'd share a couple of their thoughts. The real anger is against the Republicans in Congress. And again, you're Republican or Democrat, doesn't really matter. We're all part of the realtor party back there, so we don't really take sides. But it's interesting to hear these type of reports. They did a survey of what's most important to you. Someone experienced and tested, or someone with different than we've had. In other words, someone that's counter to the current situation. 36% wanted someone experienced and tested. 61% wanted someone that was different, an agent of change. But anyway, you package Hillary, she's not really an agent of change, right? So that's a very interesting thought. That Hillary's unfavorable rating amongst the American public is 54%, only superseded by Trump's at 61%. So what we have now is an election that nobody wants anybody to be in the office. Women and minorities really don't like Trump. 92% of African Americans, 80% of women, 78% of Latino voters will not vote for Trump. No person has ever won an election with that level of animosity. Romney has lost women by 11%. Trump is losing women by 23%. The ultimate question, will Trump awaken the silent majority, in other words, conservative white males, or will he energize and activate the minority vote like never before? Regardless, the majority voters on both sides, 56% say they're going to show up to the polls to vote against the other candidate, not for their candidate. So the best way to sum it up is a great quote I heard back there. It said, a Mae West quote, given the choice of two evils, I'll take the one I haven't tried before. Okay, so on the congressional side of the races, so there's a Trump effect in the congressional races as well, right? So in other words, if the public shows up because they really don't like Trump, then what is that going to mean for the other Republican candidates running all the way down the street on the platform? And the good news is there isn't any good news about that. So it's a question, but the House and the Senate are very close, and there's 30 people in the House that would need to lose their seats to have major change. There's only 4 or 5 people in the Senate that need to lose to have that be a major shift. So both of those are up in the air, and they're all those races are too close to call. We had the privilege of, as you all know, why we're sent back there. We actually talked to our legislators. So we talked to Anna Eshoo, Jackie Spear, Mike Honda, and Zoe Lofgren. So we get to go in and talk about housing issues and how federal regulations, et cetera, taxation impacts housing. And so we're back there to lobby basically for homeownership rights, and to sum it up very fast. So they gave us a tool this year, which I thought was fabulous. In 2012, NAR put together a consumer advocacy website called homeownershipmatters.realtor. And this website was dedicated to gathering information and making information available for homeowners. So it's kind of a grassroots campaign to get out there and say, look, are you aware that Congress is considering getting rid of mortgage interest deductibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And thousands, like 900,000 voters went on this website and registered all across the nation to protect homeownership rights, right? So we thought, well, this is a great piece of information we would love to give to distribute to our legislators. So we were each given a zip drive. On that zip drive, for example, I represent Zoe Lofgren in San Jose. We were given a 17,903 email addresses, phone numbers, and addresses of constituents in her community to support retaining homeownership rights. Right? So what does that mean to a politician? That's everything. Those are the voters that if they tend to side on the wrong side of a housing issue, in theory, would be upset, right? And plus, what does that really mean to a politician? We gave them email addresses, phone numbers, and contact information for people that she can canvass in her community for donations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is really, we voiced a very strong opinion that don't mess with homeownership rights. That's basically what we did for 5 days back in Washington, D.C. Tax reform's coming. Now, this is not rocket science. It's not going to happen this year. Not going to happen during election cycle. No way. It's not going to probably even happen next year. But the writing is on the wall. I serve on the Federal Taxation Committee back there. It's a very complex series of discussions. We have presentations from some of the, elite minds in the industry, not just real estate industry, from the taxation world, et cetera. They come and they give us proposals. They explain things to us, et cetera. So what's on the table? Mortgage interest deductibility, property tax deductions, state and local tax deductions, and like-kind exchanges. So this is going to happen. There's going to be a version of some kind of tax reform. Both candidates, Trump and Hillary, want to see tax reform move forward in some fashion. It is just the reality of our world that we're at right now. But remember, 75% of homeowners utilize the mortgage interest deduction. And those 88% of those make less than $200,000 a year. So it's crucial. And again, we don't have really affordable housing here, but I think the housing without these tax benefits will even become more unaffordable. The reality, according to NAR studies, say that of 11% in value all across the board if we lose tax benefits for homeownership. So again, this is just the studies they present to us. It's very interesting to see. So what can be done about this? Good thing you asked. If real estate is your profession, politics is your business. If real estate is your profession, politics is your business. You must get involved in political action, either by joining us in Sacramento or Washington, D.C., or actively responding to the red alerts that come out of CR staff when important legislative votes or real estate related issues are pending. Of course, there is a simpler way to get involved. You can write a check. Give me $20 in your business card, and we'll get you registered for political action. Now, $20 is just quite that. It's just a simple donation. The actual cost of you doing business, if they break it down to all the members of NAR, it's $197. But you know what? For whatever reason, only 11%, I think it's 11%, is that right, Carl? 11%? 11% of our membership does anything for political action. That astounds me, quite frankly, only because we're in a very high cost, high commission, high payout area. And 11% of our membership has donated $20 or more. I don't have an explanation for that, but that's the reality of life. So you want to get involved, you want to fight these battles. I mean, Carl and I go back there, Carl Lee and I go back there, and we're advocating on your behalf. So we're spending our time doing it, but quite frankly, it's not about us, it's about our lobbyists. We pay some very intelligent people to go to the Hill and to go to Sacramento and to talk to our legislators on a regular basis. Money, bottom line, to fight any of these campaigns. It's crucial that we fund these programs. And remember, as you've heard me say before, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And the reality is, that's where homeownership has gotten to at this point in time. Last couple of thoughts. Okay, so Lawrence Yun did a great housing report. I'm not going to share a lot of the data because that's what Jonathan's going to talk to us about. But I want to put in a couple quick points I thought were really interesting. He drew a correlation between the year 2000 and the year 2016. So it was we had 132 million jobs across the nation in 2000. Today we have 144 million jobs. Personal wealth in 2000 was $44 trillion. Today it's $85 trillion. Population was 282 million people. Today it's 320 million people. We've got 40 million people. So how has that impacted our housing market? Projected home sales for this year, 5.45 million. Projected home sales in 2000, 5.45 million. Okay, so our population's gone up 40 million, our wealth has doubled, and we're simply not selling as many houses anymore. Jonathan's gonna tell us why. No pressure. Okay, so last couple of times, Joel Singer did a great presentation at the state level. It was on disruptors or pretenders. And it talked about what you've all heard about, the internet is going to replace the real estate community. Okay, just like it did with travel agents, insurance agents, a myriad of bookstores, a myriad of different things, right? It's going to disrupt our industry so much so that we're going to become irrelevant. Well, here's some statistics that Joel shared with us, and I think these are worth talking about. Okay, there were 42,400 travel agents in 2000. Today, there are 21,200, so it's a little bit less than half. There were roughly 200,000 agents, and that's agents, not realtors, agents in 2000. Today, there are 210,700, so we've gone up in number. In 2000, 68% of buyers purchased their home through an agent or broker. Today, that number is 87%. 15% of buyers bought a for sale by owner in 2000. Today, that number is 5%. In 2000, 79% of sellers listed their home with a broker to sell it. Today, that number is 89%. FSBOs were 13% in 2000. Today, they're 8%. So has the internet disrupted the real estate industry? No, it hasn't. And quite frankly, we have probably a more important position today than we possibly ever have in the past. The rest of everything we talked about, since I know we're kind of short on time, is just legislative stuff. And there was nothing that was really noteworthy. This is some important things we discussed, and quite frankly, we had like 8 or 10 different bills we discussed. But I'll save those for another point in time, because I want to bring Jonathan up. You have a real treat today. If you've not heard Jonathan before, he's one of my favorite speakers. I had the pleasure of hearing him do a presentation that I've actually shared with many of you. I get all my data from him, by the way. So it's one of the things that I get to parrot what he says at future events. But the reality is you're hearing from the source today. He's a very gifted speaker and obviously a very knowledgeable person. I'm going to read you his biography real quick. Jonathan has been the chief economist at Realtor.com since 2014. As a 21-year veteran of the housing industry, he's passionate about real estate and translating data and trends into accurate and relevant insights for consumers and the industry. In 2015, Housing Wire named him as the new wave of economists shaking up the status quo. Jonathan tours the country getting local with Realtor.com's data and association events. His commentary on Realtor.com is widely followed and is quoted often in local media and national media like Realtor Magazine, Housing Wire, The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg Business Week, CNBC, Fortune, USA Today. Earlier this year, Inman News named Jonathan as one of the 21 most interesting people in real estate. And that's particularly painful to me because I was number 22. So prior to joining Realtor.com, Jonathan was the chief economist at Hanley Wood, an information and media company serving the residential, commercial design, and construction industries. Prior to joining Hanley Wood, Jonathan ran his own housing market research firm and operated real estate-related websites. Jonathan earned a master's in business administration degree from the University of Texas at Austin and a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics and religious studies from Rhodes College. He lives in Falls Church, Virginia with his wife, 2 teenagers, and 3 adopted rescue dogs. Please welcome Jonathan Smoke.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here just to follow the parade of good things to say about my friend Jim Harrison. You indeed have I think, the best MLS in the country from a technology, data, leadership perspective. It's really a joy to be able to collaborate with him on what they're doing and what we can do to empower the industry. I hope you're also a fan of Realtor.com and have observed the tremendous changes that have been happening. We just yesterday launched the next series of Elizabeth Bank ads, so there's going to be a lot of fun news and a lot of fun videos for you to be able to see. Those ads have been tremendous because there's something about Elizabeth Banks that connects with every age. Millennials love her. Everybody in the middle associates with the kind of humor that she brings. And I think it's perfectly poetic that we now have Elizabeth Banks and Phil Dunphy speaking positively and putting the realtor at the center of the transaction. So today, as Dave set me up, I have the challenge of talking to you about the market. And what I'm going to do is walk quickly through the key national trends on what we're observing in real time. And so, yes, it's fully up to date, and you'll be able to share that as you talk to your clients and prospects. All the slides that I'm showing are going to be posted to the association website so you can download. So don't worry about having to feverishly take notes. I'm going to then shift and talk locally. We're going to look at the Bay Area and Santa Clara County specifically with the data that we can share with you that helps you frame just how you look relative to the Bay Area, relative to the California, and relative to the entire United States, including some data that I think you will want to reference back, especially as you're talking to folks, because you literally are in the hottest place in the country from a real estate perspective. But we can give you insights into what are the zip codes that are truly the hottest in the country, and also what are the generations, who are the demographics that's behind this current market. And then I'm going to end with a topic that is probably comes up occasionally in this market, and that is San Jose in a bubble? Are we experiencing a bubble? And I'm going to share with you some data that will be issued in a broader report later this month. So you're getting a sneak peek at something, and you can be prepared for when that news comes out to ride that cycle locally with your own clients. So that's my plan. Starting off, you do have to talk about the national trends, because that's where the forecasts and the insights from like Lawrence Young are very relevant to help you understand the broader framework. I find it ironic, of course, because all real estate is what? Local. But here we go. I'm going to talk about the U.S. housing market for a bit. But it is very appropriate because the trends that are impacting you just basically are leading the curve of what's happening nationally. So nationally, one of the absolute important trends is just how phenomenally we have recovered from the recession. We have officially had almost 3 years running of job creation that exceeds the jobs that were lost. And so that means every month we are creating a record number of jobs in the United States. And that is actually a perfect paradigm for thinking about the San Jose and Bay Area broader region. However, we are at a point where that job growth is starting to slow down. Over the last 2 years, we've averaged close to 3 million jobs created. And that's important because when I first came into the industry, I was told, pay attention to 3 things that are related. Number one, jobs, because in the absence of low unemployment and job creation, you really don't have support for households to be formed and for households to feel confident that they're in a position to move up, downsize, make those real estate related decisions. And I was told a golden rule of expect 2 jobs to lead to 1 new household. And guess what? Last year we produced 2.8 million jobs in the country. And guess how many households were formed? 1.4 million. Brilliant mathematician here. I love it when the numbers make sense, because for roughly 10 years, the numbers made no sense at all. But we're getting back to normal in that category. But the third part of that is the household formation should see a corresponding growth in housing stock. Because every year we basically need to be, if you're starting from a status quo, an equilibrium for a market. That means every new household is going to need a new place to live, right? And we also have a scenario that our housing stock in the country is getting older and older. The median age of a home in the U.S. is now 1976. So, you know, I was born in 69, but 76 is getting a little old, needs a little work. So guess what happens? We lose housing stock every year. So not only are we seeing households form, but we're also losing housing stock. So we need to make up for that housing stock, and we need to address the new households. But guess what's happening? Net last year, we produced 700,000 new homes in the country, yet 1.4 million households were formed. So is it any surprise then that both prices and rents are going up? Those are the fundamental drivers, and we'll be digging into what are the trends that are causing this. Now, sales have also recovered quite nicely. This is a chart showing you what the median existing home price and existing home sales as reported by the National Association of Realtors looks like. So from a price perspective, we are right at the point that nationally we have fully recovered the value lost during the downturn. So that's one check. What you don't see though is that that's radically different by market around the country. You guys are in the category of your prices are actually at new records. But go down to the Inland Empire in Southern California, and you see they're still roughly 40% beneath the level of prices that they had at the peak of the market. So there's quite a bit of variety, but the movement is in a direction that most parts of the country will be fully recovered this year, more markets than not. Now on the sales side, you can see that we've been on a generally upward trajectory. We've had two surprising months. November of last year, we saw a drop in existing home sales. That was because of what? Anybody in the room remember what caused us to see a decline that month? TRID? What the CFPB calls no before you owe. It really means no, you're not going to close when you think you're going to close. Because the amount of time, the median age that it takes to close a loan in the end of October through November jumped by over 2 weeks from what had been a steady progression down. And that was at the slowest time of the year. So we had a little bit of then, essentially, we've been behind on what normally would have been transpiring from contracts leading to closing. And we haven't fully caught up with that yet. But that's why the blip happened in November. Then in February, we had another blip. And frankly, that one was a little bit strange because it wasn't predicted by our demand data on Realtor.com, which has been incredibly strong at the start of this year. I think it was a combination of the beginning of the year, so it's a slower time and it's slower to adjust those numbers from a seasonality point of view. But also, if you recall, the stock market lost about 12% of value in January and the first 2 weeks of February. And that certainly made a dent in higher priced markets around the country. But since then, in March and April, we fully recovered the rate of sales. And April indeed was the best April that we've had in a decade nationwide. Of course, very few people are talking about that. New home sales were up 24% in the month of April. And so it's existing homes, new homes. We're really seeing a return to normalcy. Now, if you look back in history, it looks like we're not recovered, right? Because the years 2004, 5, and 6 had about 20% more transactions that we're seeing today. Well, I have an answer for that, and that is we should all collectively forget about those years. Usually I say have a lobotomy so that, you know, there's no chance that we can recall because those years weren't real. But that's going to be also relevant when we talk about that bubble issue later on. The other thing that we can unequivocally say is that the composition of sales have truly returned back to normal. At one point in 2008, over half of every home sold in this country was either a short sale or a foreclosure. Now, that may be okay if you're in the transaction business, but for the rest of the housing industry, that causes all kinds of unhealthy things. I mean, for one, when investors are buying up foreclosure homes, they do not put the investment into the home that a typical homeowner would do. So you had construction incredibly weak. You had job losses related to that. You had everything in our sphere suffering through those years. And officially, I think sometime this year, I can quit showing you this chart to explain to you that we don't have a foreclosure problem in the US anymore. We worked through that period. If it weren't for the states of New Jersey, New York, Illinois, and Florida, we wouldn't even have foreclosures that are even considered normal from a historical perspective. And if you've looked at the quality of mortgages that have been underwritten since the year 2008, we probably are less likely to see a foreclosure crisis over the next decade or two. So in other words, if that's been your specialty, find a new specialty because you're not very likely to have a strong pipeline. But we do have a problem. We don't have enough inventory to sell. And it's funny how this industry has a really difficult time of having a happy equilibrium. Because a happy equilibrium nationally is between 6 to 7 months supply of homes. And in April, we were exactly the same in both the new home category and the existing home category, 4.7 months of supply. And ironically, again, as a remembrance that the last 10 to 15 years haven't exactly been normal, we essentially went through the housing downturn, financial Armageddon that caused supply to be unnaturally high, which of course leads to price declines and the kind of losses we suffered. But then once that supply got corrected, we have been in this very low level supply. And one lesson, especially for you guys, is that's the new normal. Get used to the fact that we are going to be in a low supply condition because the normal escape valve is for new construction to grow 40, 50% in the first couple of years out of a recovery. Well, that's not happening. New construction has grown a bit when you look at the totals, but all of that growth has been in multifamily. And we are just now seeing single family eke out a double-digit gain. But instead of 40%, it's more like 11 or 12% that's likely to be the final tally this year. So remember those numbers. We're not able to produce as much new construction to keep up with the household growth that we're experiencing. And if you want a poster child for that, it is the state of California. You are the absolute worst recipe for control, for limiting the amount of new construction that's happening. From local regulations, exclusionary zoning, impact fees, the drought and related restrictions, NIMBYism, everything. So what does that mean? It means low supply is going to be a norm for quite some time. But it also means what else? We don't have significant risk of having oversupply for the foreseeable future. And what leads to price declines? Oversupply. So it would take an immense economic tragedy to really see those conditions turn. And another way that I look at it is, all right, I turned 47 this year. I know I always don't look like that. But in my mind, what we've lived through, I will not see again in my lifetime, and I think that applies to most of us in the room. As I mentioned, April was incredible in terms of the gains that we are seeing. I am the only economist that I know of in housing that actually was saying we were going to have more growth this year, and it's because all the data that I had access to, besides Lawrence Young, but my forecast was stronger than Lawrence's. All of our data on Realtor.com said that we ended last year with so many people in the pipeline frustrated that they couldn't find the home to buy last year, that they were going to be waiting as soon as the holidays were over to jump into this market. And that's indeed what we have been seeing from an inventory movement perspective. We saw the housing market experience in March what typically happens in May or June in terms of how quickly the age of inventory drops. It has been true for 2 years running. This is the total inventory stats from Realtor.com. In each month and in each week, we've had fewer homes to sell than we did the year prior. And that 2 years of that means the inventories are getting lower and lower. It means the speed of the inventory, how quickly it's turning, is getting faster and faster. And you guys are, ground zero for that and have been for a couple of years. We are not seeing that trend change. We're analyzing that data on a weekly basis, and it's been a very consistent phenomenon around the country. So what happens in that environment? Asking prices go up. We've been averaging 9 or 8% on a year-over-year basis for every month now since I've been at Realtor.com. So for two years, that's been the stat. May was 8% on a year-over-year basis, keeping that trend going. And you can see how this lights up. Red, any shade of red is a very positive year-over-year price increase. And you can see that that's virtually the whole country. In fact, the only areas that are showing asking price weakness are the areas that are basically oil country, parts of the country that are most impacted by the downturns in the energy market. But guess what's been going up even faster than home prices? Rents. And I believe that that's actually the next crisis that politically the country is going to have to address. That this limit on our ability to construct also applies to apartments as well as single family homes. And in fact, some of the zoning is actually even worse. And so as a result, yes, we're building more apartments today than we have in more than 30 years, but they're all at higher price points from a rents perspective. And guess which units are most likely to be torn down to put new buildings in? They are the lowest price point rents. And so that's part of the reason why vacant properties are seeing, so the true vacant advertised, not somebody that's just having a lease renewed, are experiencing a double-digit rent increase on a year-over-year basis. So the alternative, if it was cool for a while to say renting is the new normal and that's what all the smart people are going to be doing, they are realizing that's not so smart of a financial decision. That if you're in a position to buy, the alternative, renting, is not good for the future from a value and inflation perspective. Rents are going up in virtually the entire country. The data there is a little bit less dynamic, but it is a phenomenon that than we have with asking prices for homes. But it is a phenomenon that's true of the entire country. And as a result, in most of the country, it is cheaper to buy a home than to rent the equivalent property. And that is not true, however, of Northern California. And we'll talk about that. And I do have a positive aspect to that, because the concern I have in most places in the country, that sounds like a poster advertisement for any realtor, that it is cheaper to buy a home than to rent. And work with me, because I'll help you figure out how to get into home ownership. But when the stats tell us that a household that's renting is spending more than 30% of their income on rents, which is true in most of those places where it's cheaper to buy rather than rent, there's no money left over to save for a down payment, to address credit record, or to deal with the fact that an emergency could come up. The Fed has an interesting survey, and a horrible statistic of households in the country could not survive a $400 surprise. And so I'm concerned about that. And that's one of the positives to say about Santa Clara County, is that you're not at that level. The apartment construction that has been going on here has kept the rent increases here a little bit more in control than we've seen in other places in the country. So there is a positive. There's always a negative and a positive way to look at every story. And the message to young people is that they haven't missed their window of opportunity. We like to talk about, well, if mortgage rates are going up and prices are going up, then affordability is going to decline. Well, NAR publishes a stat every month. It's lagged by 2 months. So the most recent one is in the month of March. The affordability index was 169. That index means that the median family in the country at median income levels could afford 169% of the median priced home. Historically, over the last 45 years, that number has averaged 125. We can see mortgage rates get closer to 6% before we see that number come back down to normal. And anybody remember the good old days of 1979, 80, and 81? When mortgage rates got as high as 18%. Well, at that point, the affordability calculation was 64. So we've got a long way to go historically before we really have an affordability problem nationally in the home owning environment. So there's still an opportunity. And if you've got a lot of millennials, some of which still living in your home like I do, don't worry, they haven't lost their window of time. And then speaking of the election, perfect setup, Dave. and I wrote my commentary this week trying to make sense of this. Consumer confidence has been declining every month since November of last year. Gee, I wonder why. And people, especially, is being driven by people's concern about the future. But guess what? Their attitudes and their plans to buy a home or a car in the next 6 months is as high as it's been going back to 2005. And gee, does that connect with what we saw in the month of April? So in other words, the politics, yes, makes people uneasy, but they're not ignoring the economic and demographic and low mortgage rates and all of those things that are screaming to them, this is the most perfect market to sell. And guess what? 86% of the people who visit realtor.com to sell a home also were intending to buy. So we think that this is truly a unique environment, and the election, it might have an impact on, say, Washington, D.C. once we get past September, because there's always weirdness in Washington, D.C. because whatever party goes out of favor, then everybody's selling their homes, and the new party is coming in, and so there's disruption. I can't imagine that there's going to be real disruption here. Because how many of you bought your first home based on how happy you were at who's going to be living in the White House? Not once in my life have I ever bought a home based on who was in the White House, or for that matter, what the mortgage rate was. I did it because I was getting married, or we were having the first kid, or we were having the next kid, or we were dealing with a job relocation, good old-fashioned life events. And that's what we're having in droves today. And that's what I want to talk to you about, to explain what we're experiencing and what's driving this, and how we're only at the beginning of a really positive time. It all comes down to age. This is a chart that shows the age of the entire U.S. population by year as of the end of 2015, and I've labeled the generations for you. So you can see that the millennial generation is indeed the largest generation. So I'm sorry to all you boomers in the world. Yes, you've been pushing around everybody else. I'm in Generation X. All of my siblings are millennials, so I have a chip on the shoulder for that scenario. You outnumbered everybody, but not anymore. They outnumber you by a full 5 million. And the median age of a millennial buying a home last year was 30. So if you look at the chart and see where 30 is on this chart, you can see that that was actually one of the lowest years of population. In other words, the numbers of millennials are going to grow. Over the next 5 years, the people who turn 30 number 4.4 million to 4.7 million. Okay, that's an enormous number, because guess what? They don't own homes already, and they're very likely to be in their 30s to own a home. So there's going to be an enormous shift of demand that is right in line with exactly what we're seeing. We're finally starting to see the first-time buyer numbers come up. NAR reported that this year the millennial share of generations buying in their report they issued in March is 35%. That essentially works out mathematically to a third of the total home buyers in the country this year are going to be millennials. So that's fantastic. But guess what other big trend is happening that you can see apparent if you think about this, is the baby boomer trend. Because the leading edge of baby boomers this year are 65 to 69 years old. And the research data tells me that 65 is the new 55. 55 is no longer the year that people are really making retirement home decisions. It's really 65. A combination of things have caused that. People are living longer. All of those boomers are responsible for most of those millennials, and you hear it constantly that those millennials are hanging out in their homes a little bit longer. So maybe the generation before had the luxury of making a decision at 55 when they were a first-time empty nest, but now it's taking more like getting closer to 65. But as you're staring at 65, you're really starting to think, I got 10 to 15 good years, and it's time to focus on me. And because of that, what we see in the math is that The two age cohorts that are most likely to buy a home this year are 25 to 34 and 65 to 74. And now think about, we're on the leading edge of both of those trends, and the numbers get dramatically bigger over every year for the next 15 years for both of those categories. So demographics have actually been working against us. I am a member of Generation X, as I said. We are the valley of the shadow of death from a demographic perspective. We would have had a downturn no matter what, even without the financial Armageddon. And so now it's not our responsibility to drive the housing market. It's the millennials and the retiring baby boomers. And those numbers are going to be a factor because there's no stopping that. There's no stopping 4.7 million people turning 30. It's going to happen. And yes, the economy will play a role and interest rates will play a role, but they'll all play a role in the backstage of those life events. And that's why I'm very bullish and very optimistic about the longer term. Millennials do own homes. The millennial, and I pay attention to 25 to 34 because it's kind of unfair to label the entire generation when the youngest millennial this year is 16. And last time I checked, no time in history did 16-year-olds own homes in the country. 25 to 34 is the key range, and that's 42% nationally. And I'll be talking about the local percentages in a second. But to give you a feel for just how big the boomer shift is going to continue to mess with our culture and the American experience, this is what Nielsen Demographics projects is what will happen in the U.S. population over the next 5 years. The population grows 4%, but the people 65 plus grow 18% in that 5 years. Now, we're not growing new 65-year-olds, and we're not importing them from other countries. That is purely the effect of that trend that we saw earlier. And so what does that mean? If you're going to focus on an expertise, senior housing is probably a good idea. Aging in place is going to be a really important function, and for you to be aware of that and even to bring that insight to your customers that maybe even aren't in that age yet to think about that as they're making improvements to their home. And then there's no question, there are things that are holding us back besides inventory. And the biggest elephant in the room is credit availability. This is the Mortgage Bankers Association Credit Availability Index. They didn't start collecting it until 2004, so we don't have a good history to go back when things were truly normal. But to frame how that number has trended, 2005, at the very peak of the market leading into 2006, their index was almost 900. That's could qualify for a mortgage. And if you've seen The Big Short, who saw The Big Short? Do you remember that the guy that was renting the house when he went to that place in Miami and the dude says, "That's my landlord's dog," when he was looking for the name? You have living proof that pets could qualify for a mortgage back then. Well, the number today is 122.4. And what I like to give you the analogy for this in terms of it being normal is, does anybody know the boiling point in Fahrenheit for water? The temperature? 212. Well, I've tried to pin down the mortgage bankers, and they won't go on record, but they've told me personally that index normal is probably between 200 to 300. Well, at 122, we don't have credit really enabling a normal level of transactions in the market. It would just be like wanting to have your boiled egg and you can't get the water above 122 degrees. You're not going to have a boiled egg. We're not going to have a normal level of transactions. And why I bring that up in terms of framing what's going on in the market is because not only is that limiting demand, I think that it's credit availability more than anything else, especially in an area like Northern California that has seen home values recover at supply. Because if you FICO score in April was 723. The average FICO for an adult with a credit record, which is an abnormally better group of people, because people with the worst credit actually don't even have a score available to them, is 695. So there is a substantial portion of the population that would not qualify for a mortgage today, or they perceive they wouldn't qualify for a mortgage today, so they're not even trying. And as a result, the average tenure in a home is up to 13 years nationally. And so we've seen an abnormal number of people that otherwise in this sort of market would be encouraged. Now, the good news is long-term credit availability had been slightly improving. The bad news is the flip side of the coin, that we've got lower mortgage rates right now than we did a year ago or even 6 months ago. Availability got tighter over the last couple of months, and it certainly stopped the progression of getting looser. And so as a result, eventually we're going to see that improvement. Realistically, it's probably not going to be this year. It's probably when rates start trending back into the 4s on the 30-year and start moving towards 5% that we'll see lenders get more aggressive. And rightfully so, because today there's very little money for them to make. TRID has made their operations even more expensive, so they make even less money. And if they make a single mistake, the Justice Department comes after them with multi-million-dollar fines and judgments. So it's no surprise their behavior, and we're not going to see that gradually return more towards normal. So eventually it will become a tailwind, but just recognize that's one of the limiting factors, and it's part of the reason why you should be very focused on working with a really good local lender that can keep you apprised of the local programs, how rates are trending locally. And why is that? Because your funnel couldn't be bigger. This is the trend from ComScore of all people in the United States looking at and trending up. But what I want to point out to you are the percentages. It tells us that a third of people 55 plus looked at real estate online in April. Over half, now 61% of 35 to 54-year-olds looked at real estate online in April. Percent of adult millennials looked at real estate online April. That translates in my math to a pipeline today of roughly 20 million. We're only going to sell 6 million homes. The issue is that those 20 million people represent an enormous spectrum of no way in heck they're going to be able to purchase a home in the next 12 months because of their credit score, because of where they are in the country. But the good news is they are learning. They are investing those things. They're dreaming about real estate. They're in love with the Property Brothers. They are very focused on this profession, and it's why I think Phil Dunphy and Elizabeth Banks are doing so much for reaching out to the country. So our forecast for this year is positive. This is our updated forecast. The top part is the macro economy that comes from Lawrence Young and his team, which essentially is calling for the kind of economic growth that we're actually seeing right now. We see evidence that his forecast is the right input to ours. But we're expecting sales to go up by 3% on the existing home side, to see a double-digit increase in new homes. So remembering to look at new home inventory is going to become more and more important. Homes are likely to appreciate about 6%. And net, it means we'll end this year with about 6 million total home sales, which will truly be the best year we've had since 2006. And for those of us that were in the industry in 2006, that wasn't such a good year. It was a good total, but you could see everything was falling apart. And that is not the case with the growth today. So the rest is going to be your local information. I'm going to share this stuff more as color commentary because I think you're going to get the most out of it when you can go back to the slides and reference the local data, because most of this is zip code oriented and it's going to be very hard to read some of the tables. So I'm just going to give you the highlights. First of all, you may not know, but mortgage rates vary dramatically, especially by location in the country, because lenders are also making bets about where they feel best about the country and the prospects for real estate appreciation. And right now, this is one category that California doesn't look so good. So what you hear advertised or what you see reported from Freddie Mac this week in the newspaper actually is not exactly what your local folks are experiencing. All the more reason for you to find a local lender that you can stay up with what rates have been doing. Now, this blurry kind of, the black lines highlight what it is for California, Florida, New York, Washington, US for comparison's sake. But that green trend is where we've been over the last 13 months for each of those. So California has seen more of an increase in mortgage rates, and it's actually occurred mostly over the last 30 days. The rest of the country is not quite seeing that, but Florida is seeing it even worse as lenders get more concerned about their performance. This is what the San Jose MSA covers. So from a Bureau of Labor statistics, it's the most granular you can get for job creation. You fit the template nationally, only better. You have record numbers of jobs. That engine is slowing down in terms of its growth, but you're projected to deliver over 20,000 new jobs this year, which ranks you as still one of the highest performing growth markets in the country. And your unemployment rate is 3.74%. The US is at 5%. So you're dramatically better than the US. And there's very few places in the country that even come close to the combination of those two factors. Like the US, all of your growth and new construction has principally been in multifamily. And that's part of the reason why when we look at the renting affordability numbers, you'll see that your rents are actually relatively affordable compared to other places in the country. But that's also why your supply has not been better, because you haven't been seeing new homes come on and help the inventory side of things. These are the major counties in Northern California looking at deeds. So all total home sales, not just listed home sales. And so it's a better view of what the actual total price recovery looks like. And that tells us that last year, year over year, prices were up, median home price was up 15% in Santa Clara County. And on a real price perspective, where you adjust for inflation and you look at transaction pairs, basically it looks like the real appreciation was more like 10%, because the median is shifting up, making it look like values are going up a little bit more than the actual values are occurring in the market. That trend is consistent with every county in Northern California, and it also puts you in the perspective of you're one of the areas in the country that is not only seeing all the values recovered, you're setting new records for home prices. List prices are starting to show some signs of slowing down in terms of the increase, but you still are seeing significant increases. So you're slowing down to a 12% increase in April as opposed to the 15 last year. You need to slow down. That level of price appreciation isn't normal and can't continue indefinitely. So that trend is what we would expect. This is just a heat map of the same data, so you can see all of Northern California and see that actually most of your neighbors are continuing to see even more significant price appreciation. It fits my template of thinking that your county actually is more of a bellwether of where the other ones are going to be later or potentially next year. When we focus in on your market specifically, this is the heat map breaking it down by zip code. And you can see there's quite a bit of variation. So yeah, all housing's local, right? It's all neighborhood by neighborhood, and it's not monolithic in terms of all Santa Clara County experiencing the same gains. We currently in April showed that Campbell and 95008 had the most significant year-over-year price appreciation of 20%. Why is that? Well, inventory, just like the national pattern, has been down on a year-over-year basis. These charts are showing the year-over-year increases. And so we really, until April, in most of Northern California, we're consistently seeing less inventory. But San Francisco started it in February, and I think Santa Clara is trending in that direction. That because your home values have recovered, more existing homeowners are realizing that they're in a better position to sell. And it should lead to more listings coming on, and it should actually lead to an abnormal trend in your year elongating this year if people are trying to take advantage of the mortgage rates while they have a chance. Because if you remember that stat, 86% of home sellers are planning to buy at the same time. So the game is not about just maximizing what you can get for your other home. It's also doing that dance of being able to buy your second home in this kind of environment. This is just showing a heat map of how the inventory looks. You're not the biggest county, but you're pretty close in terms of total inventory in the immediate Bay area. And then age of inventory for the major counties, you are close to the fastest moving inventory as we calculate it. This is the inventory that's based on what MLS Inc. is feeding us, and it recorded a median number of 23 days in April, which is incredibly fast, and leads us to this, that you're the 8th hottest county in the country. And we define hotness by two things. One is the speed of the inventory movement, and also by the number of views that your listings are getting on Realtor.com. The average view nationally in April was just under 200. Your average listing got over 400 in April. And that's why this is a heat map that's graded on a national standard. And the areas that aren't colored are basically areas that don't have enough listings to meet our threshold requirements. Your entire market on a national standard is hot for the region. And then we break it down by county, but to give you color commentary for those who can't read, 95111 in San Jose was the hottest in the county in the spring.
9511.
Means that there's basically only about 30 other zip codes in the country out of 33,000 zip codes that were technically hotter according to our calculations. So it's where Denver has a large number of those. San Francisco has a few. For example, no, San Francisco is no longer. Contra Costa, Pleasant Hill, and Alameda has a few that are slightly hotter. Yeah. And then if you've seen any examples of big data, have you heard the phrase big data referred to? Well, one of the things that we can offer back to you, and in fact, it's also one of the things we're working with your MLS, to provide these analytics that can be plugged into the analytics that you guys use, is to let you know what we can observe on Realtor.com. And one of those things, about 25% of our visitors, we can tell how old you are because you tell us in some of our tools or forms or registering for a profile, or because Google tells us. And you know, they're just down the street from us, and they're happy to share those analytics. So it breaks down. We can tell you by zip code what the most dominant age was looking at listing in the spring, in the current spring, and this is how the math looks like. We've got a tool that we're launching that's just for the industry, or intended mainly for the industry, that lets you then see what the bar chart looks like for the distribution. And it's fascinating to see, because if you're trying to pay attention to where millennials want to be and where retiring boomers want to be, paying attention to where those people are hotspots on the map become more and more important. You insights into your prospects look like the right prospects that match what we're observing. These are the largest zip codes with the most listings in the Bay Area, and you can see the distribution. So for example, 95134 is pretty evenly split, but the boomers 55 to 64 slightly outnumber everybody else. So it's everybody, it's not skewed, but you can see that there's some areas like in San Francisco that it's all about the millennial. That one zip code 94111 is almost 70% people under 35 looking at listings. And then just so that you understand that this baby boomer wave is impacting you, remember the number nationally was 4% population growth and 16% growth in 65 plus. Well, your population growth is 6%, so stronger than the nation by 50%. but your 65 plus is growing 21%. And actually, when you do the math, you realize that virtually all your population growth is happening in 55 and older folks. And it's just the distribution and showing you how it shifts. You're continuing to see growth. But that phenomenon of who's going to be driving the buys and the sells in your market is going to be even more amplified than the rest of the country. And then every week we do a story on Realtor.com highlighting the hottest listings that week. These are your current 4 hottest listings over the last 90 days. As you can see, this is not Brad and Angelina's pad. We're talking about this is what real people are looking at for listings in the market. You get more than twice the number of visits of the typical listing on Realtor.com, and these get 3 to 5 times more than your average. So this is, the law of numbers tells us that this is really indicative of how deep the demand is looking. And then, as I mentioned, your rents are rising, but the amount of increase is not as significant as most of the rest of the country. And the math turns into a scenario that even though it is cheaper to rent versus buy, the typical renting household is still spending less than 30% of their incomes on rent. And so you haven't reached that kind of alarm territory that I'm concerned about for the rest of the country. For example, San Francisco is 30% of income on rent. You're 29%. So you're right at it, but staying under it is the important thing to focus on. And then from a home ownership perspective, given the expensive market, this is truly an area where home ownership is lower than the rest of the country. It's 55% in the broader Bay Area. You can see the heat map. The more urban area is going to have less of a home ownership rate. This is just Santa Clara County, and the same effect is here, although the home ownership is slightly stronger. Likewise, for millennials, I mentioned it's 42% for the country. It's only 24%. California, New York, Washington, D.C. just can't, because of the affordability, millennials haven't had a shot. But I looked up the data this month for the last 9 months for Santa Clara, and 35% of the purchase mortgages over the last 9 months have been purely to 25 to 34-year-olds. And that's exactly in alignment with the national statistic. So those jobs at Google and Amazon and at Realtor.com and all those places are producing the income that's actually necessary for these folks to be getting in to this market. And then finally, because I started out in construction, I always pay attention to where the growth is projected to be. Growth is what's key to price appreciation, values staying strong, and where you're going to see the most activity. This is what it looks like for the Bay Area, and this is what it looks like for Santa Clara County. And it's virtually the entire region, but San Jose has more significant growth, almost twice the growth as the county overall. Now, I typically, this is something that I'm doing special for you guys today. We're going to issue a report later this month. I keep thinking it's still May, but it's June. Later this month, addressing the topic of, are we in a bubble, and do we have bubbles in individual markets in the country? I wanted to take a very serious approach to this so that the realtors wouldn't say, I mean, the media wouldn't say, oh, you're just representing Realtor.com, so of course you're going to tell us that there's no bubble. I wanted to do it in a way that academics and everybody would be able to say they approached it the right way. So we went and looked at all the academic literature and said, what is required to produce a real bubble? And as a test, if you've seen The Big Short, think about, did you see these things in that movie? Number one, you have to experience abnormal, substantial increase in prices. And we had that in the real bubble, and we have been experiencing that, right, over the last couple of years. Then number two, there has to be evidence that that increase is being fueled by speculation. And you see that multiple ways. You can see that in flipping activity growing. You can see that in builders building speculatively. You can see that in the volume of people that are investor or not owner-occupied homes. And that's not something we're seeing occur currently. It's enabled by easy financing and loose credit. And as I shared with you nationally, I can assure you that the mortgage statistics do not support the notion that it's easy to get a mortgage in Santa Clara County. And it's certainly nothing like it was in 2004, 2005, 2006. As a result of that speculation, you have a real oversupply threat in a bubble scenario. Because think about it, what I get annoyed by is that every time prices go up today, people use the word bubble. And prices going up are normal. California has had housing markets for 100 years of prices going up because there's a natural cycle of oversupply, then some kind of change in the economic conditions causing values to go down for a little while, then they come back up. So you've always been an area where there's been chances for price appreciation. And if we think about it, what is the reason that we saw prices decline when the bubble popped? It was because all of that speculation and all of that loose credit immediately turned into people needing to sell, having to sell, but also immediately no longer taking away those people from demand, which is why the homeownership rate declined. So for you to have a real risk from a bubble popping, you have to have an oversupply risk. And there is no evidence of an oversupply risk going on. And then finally, because prices are up, one relevant test is to ask the question, are prices out of alignment with two other critical factors? Prices relative to income, because at some point you can only go so high that you won't be able to support that because the people who live in the market don't have the incomes to continue. And are prices high relative to rents, the alternative? And what we see is that yes, your prices have gone up and they've been substantial. However, there's no sign that the speculation is occurring at all. And in fact, new construction, your numbers are flipped. For every 2 households being formed, you have 1 construction start. It should be the reverse. And it has been so bad since the bubble popped. We've got a giant hole of not enough housing, and we're losing ground with each passing year. And then finally, the mortgage activity looks nothing like it did during the bubble years, as you all, I think, comfortably believe. So we will be working on the story. We'll be talking to the San Jose Mercury News and everybody nationally to share this perspective. Yes, you've had above price appreciation. Some of that was recovering the values lost, but almost all of it is because of simple economics 101. You are in an incredible, you meaning your market, are an incredible job creator. But not only that, you produce the highest income jobs in the country. According to Moody's Analytics, there is no other market in the country that has had the same amount of income growth. So is it any wonder if you don't have enough supply and people are getting the incomes and they have the credit and the down payment and all those other things that enable them to get financing that's difficult today, that you have multiple bid situations on the most desirable places to live. Now then, does that leave you in a scenario that there's risk that prices are going to decline in the foreseeable future? And the answer is no, as long as that economic engine continues to thrive. And so I feel very strongly in saying you are not in a bubble, and I'm happy to go on record to defend that position, as I'm sure I will be. Now, normally I end with some music, but we had some technical difficulty. If you know me as a DJ, that's the one thing Dave didn't report in your report from DC was the 4-hour party that Realtor.com threw that I DJ. But I have a playlist on Realtor.com you can go look up, or you can follow me on Twitter and find it there. I'm at Smoke on Housing, not at Jonathan Smoke. That's some dude named Jonathan that's really into pot. He's really not. This is the real Jonathan Smoke. So thank you, and I enjoyed being with you today.
You did a fantastic job. Not many people can deliver that amount of data, facts, and information with actually making you laugh and be entertained. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for that. And then next, we want to thank our sponsors for making events like this possible. We have just a few words from Anna Lopez from Wells Fargo. Anna, are you here? Thank you, Anna.
Well, I don't know if I can follow that, guys. Wasn't that fantastic?
Yes.
I have never sat in to hear someone talk about numbers so great. So 2 things I heard today. One is Dave saying that the internet will never replace a realtor, and I really believe that because the internet's great information, but you guys give the TLC, the service, and the expertise. So that's one. And as a lender, we want to extend ourselves to you as a part of your team. Wells Fargo love the fact that, we are in great business right now in Silicon Valley, as Jonathan has spoken about. And he had mentioned about rent and lots of jobs. So of course, everything's high. People can't save enough money. Well, Wells Fargo just came out with one phenomenal product. It's called Your First Mortgage. It is a 3% down. Not even first-time homebuyer, guys. And you guys can use your client's border to use as income to qualify. They can choose no mortgage insurance or lender pay mortgage insurance. It's a conventional loan, not an FHA. Phenomenal for clients that really want to be in a house and just putting a little down on it. So thank you so much. I have my sales team here at the end of the meeting. Please come and see us if you have any questions. Have a great day.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we have Sarah Hammerstad, Slater and Hersey, attorneys at law. I'd like to say this amazing woman here is very knowledgeable. I've contacted her for information from the past. She knows what she's doing. She has a great resource of information. So I just want to give that little testimony for Sarah. I can't speak highly enough for her. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Like I mentioned, my name is Sarah Hammerstad. I am a local real estate attorney. Dave, I'm sorry, should I? Yes, I apologize. Dave, I am not volunteering to be the new roof on your house. Our office is in downtown San Jose. I work with a few other people that practice real estate law. Anthony Ventura, who you see his name probably on some of your flyers and information. Dean Rossi recently joined our firm. You may recognize that name. And then I also work with Alex Cavaleris, who's an associate. She's been practicing with me for about 6 years. We both graduated Santa Clara Law School together. So we do primarily non-disclosure cases, easement and other land use disputes, neighbor disputes, partition actions, pretty much anything touching on real estate is what we focus on. We do a little bit of business litigation as well. But real estate is our focus, so that's why we come out here and sponsor your events and like to connect with you. So I'll keep this short because I have a pretty bad cough, and I don't want to get into a coughing fit up here. But we will be at the golf tournament on the 14th, so we hope to see you all out there and connect with you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Up next, we'd like to have a few minutes to talk about our foundation here. We have Bonnie Wilson, our president of the Santa Clara County Realtors Foundation. So Bonnie, if you may, come up and say a few words for us as well.
Hi. I like the fact that Sarah mentioned the golf tournament. I'd like to talk to you. I have a couple of minutes, and I'd like to talk to you about two things that are extremely important to me. And that is, as we make our money and we're able to make those checks and go to our closing and help people, it's also important that we give back to help others. We are in one of the richest areas here, and we have a lot of people that are still in need. So our foundation, which is our foundation, it's the Santa Clara County Realtors Foundation, gives back to those that are in need. Last year, we were able to give to 14 organizations. Of that, when you think that you can donate $2, and with $2, you can feed, clothe, house, give someone a shower, and fresh underwear, that's a pretty significant thing. It doesn't take a lot of money to help a lot of people, but it takes a lot of people giving a little bit of money to help those that are in need. I have two things that I'd like to talk to you about. One, SCORE is having their 63rd golf tournament. Thank you, Sarah, for mentioning it. And what we need is golfers, because the money that is generated from that golf tournament goes to the foundation. And that money then, 100% of it is given out to those organizations that are in the most in need. So we need you, if you haven't signed up, if you haven't paid to golf, and you don't have to be good, you just have to come out and have fun. That's all. Please sign up. See Hilda, see Cindy, see any one of the people at the board and sign up for that, because it's extremely worthwhile and it gives us a big bonus. It's where the biggest amount of our money comes from. The other thing I'd like to talk about is we have 5,500 plus members in SCORE. And if we were able to each one of us give $100, just $100, not even 10 lattes, we would be able to meet half of our $1 million homeless challenge. That is a lot of money, and that allows us to give back to those in the most need. We are looking at giving to veterans in need. We are giving to those that families that are homeless and need help. So what I'd like is for each of you to consider, when you go to the title company and pick up your big check, to give back $100 to the homeless challenge. And if you have a little of extra time, join the golf tournament, come out and have fun with us. I'd like to thank you all for the participation that you've given us in the past. And I'd like to thank you for what I believe will be the continued participation in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've had a number of great presentations today. And if those of you who don't know me, I'm Vince Rocha, the Government Affairs Director here at SCORE. And I have a couple of things for you. Raise your hand if you've returned your ballot early, you've already voted early. Okay, great, I voted early. And if you haven't voted early, Election Day is on Tuesday next week. So what you have to remember when you vote is, it's not whether or not government and politicians, whether you care about them or not, because they care about you. And what do you mean? What am I saying? Do they care about you? Well, I just came back from San Jose State this morning, where they had a regional economic summit of 300 business people and local elected officials. And one of the state's top economic officials was saying that it's a very real thing that we might have a service tax here in California. Well, what's that? So they're talking about, well, you know, we could lower sales tax a few percent if we just tax services by 4%. So that's 4% on your commission, right? And by the way, affiliates in the room, that's you too. You provide services. Every single one of us in this room, your profession provides a service to your clients. So what is 4%? And I'm going to give you a number here. The median home price in Santa Clara County in April was about $1,085,000. What's a 3% commission on $1,085,000?
Not enough.
All right. Well, 32 is about 32,550, and that's assuming you get that whole 3% to yourself. And then so a 4% tax on that one commission, about $1,300. So how many services are in a real estate transaction? Appraisal, inspection, the service you provide as a realtor, title. How many? So I mean, you're going to tax every step of the way in that transaction. So who pays the tax? I mean, you'll end up paying, but who really pays? The buyer. The buyer. Consumer. So when I say politics cares about you, I mean they're going to tax you, and they're going to do other things that are instead of focusing on building more housing to meet our. I think Jonathan did a great job of telling us the fundamentals of the high prices are good, but the problem is we have too many people moving into the area and construction isn't keeping up. And so the people who are buying have good credit, good fundamentals. They're not going to foreclose on their homes like we saw, not too long ago. But, there's other ways we can address our housing crisis than taxing services and doing some other things they want to do. So I'm going to pass out around the room. And I'm just going to ask you guys one thing is we have some great local endorsed candidates here in San Jose. And I'm going to pass out who they are. And hopefully you can get that around the room. And I'm hoping you vote, and I'm hoping that you consider voting for these endorsed candidates. And one of them is a realtor Myron Von Racefield lives in District 6 here in San Jose. He's running for council there. And actually, we do have realtors on the planning commission, on local city councils, and they understand your issues. And by the way, they can tax services at the local level too. So when it comes to things that matter to you and your business and the ability for you to provide to your clients, politics cares about you whether or not you care about politics. And I'm going to leave you on one more thing, because I know you're all going to go vote, and then you're going to look at the endorsed candidates. You're going to vote for those people because they really understand your industry. They understand small business. But I'm also going to ask, I'm going to be at the door, so you can meet me on the way out. You can either give me $20 in your business card, or you can fill out this form. But I'm going to ask you to donate to the Realtor Action Fund. That's how we support candidates and issues that affect you. What do you mean, what issues? Well, issues is they don't just pass these taxes in the legislature or the city council. They might just put it to the ballot, and then we have to deal with it at the ballot. Or we have to elect people who understand that taxing services is a bad idea within the legislature and within the city council. So talking really fast here because you've had a lot to chew on today, but I really do want you to understand when we talk about tax reform, it's not this really abstract thing where you might pay a couple extra dollars. I mean, we're talking 4% of what you guys provided. And I was shocked to hear that this morning. So they're going to be coming out with new tax proposals this year for next year to implement. So I'm going to stand by the door, and I'm hoping you can support the Realtor Action Fund to help us support candidates and policies that help you and your clients. Again, Vince Rocha, I'm the Government Affairs Director here, and I believe we have a little wrap up from our President and CEO, Tricia Motter and Neil Collins.
All right, thank you so much, Vince. And yes, can't stress the importance enough of contributing to our PAC. I can tell you that this is one of the pins I proudly wear as a investor and contributor to protect private property rights and home ownership. So thank you again so much, Vince. So now we would like to have our honorary members that we have had with our association for quite a few years. We'd like to congratulate them on their seasoned career in real estate. So we'd like to actually start off with those that have actually been members of our association for 25 years. So this is, we have a few people we'd like to recognize. So we have De Silva Albana Mercedes. We have Grant Denmark, Basima Haddad, and Christopher Trappini. So those that are here, please come up and move forward. We'd like to have a picture of you guys. And thank you so much, Grant, who is here today. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Thanks very much.
Oh, and we'd like to get a picture of you guys.
Tricia, come on over.
Yes.
No, we got one more person.
Oh, yes.
Okay, come on.
Yes, yes.
Here,
We got a call for you.
right here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'd like to recognize those that have been members with our association for 30 years. We have Gloria Ashdown, Susan Gable, Mark Gisler, Ranjana Goel, Fariba Lance, Terry Meyer, Stephanie Pham, and John Spanberg. So if you are here, please come forward. We'd like to congratulate you guys. Oops.
There you go.
Yay. There we go. Great, thank you guys.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
And next we have two that we are honoring for 35 years of membership. We have Lee Montecone, Carlene Westfall.
That's right.
All right, next we have 40 years of membership. Nasrola Kazimi, Scott Morella, Tony Sanchez, Alfred Weckley, and William Welch, also known as Bill Welch. Next step forward, I'd like to recognize 40 years of membership. These guys do not look old enough to be members of Realtors for 40 years. Thank you guys so much. And lastly, we have two we'd like to honor for 45 years of membership. Jack Guercio and Robert Johnson. 45 years. Can't wait to celebrate your 50 years coming up.
And I still see Jack in the marketing meeting, so I know he's still active.
I gotta go hug all the girls when they go down.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for saying huge congratulations to you guys. Thank you so much, and I'd like to bring forward Neil to have a few closing remarks. Thank you.
That was awesome. I love doing that. It's my favorite part of the meeting. So we are just about ready to wrap up here. I want to really thank all of you with your patience during our remodel. For those of you who don't know, we've been remodeling the membership service area, and we're going to open it up to everyone officially on Monday. We're going to take down that temporary wall, but it actually is open today after this meeting if you want to take a sneak peek and kind of see what we're doing behind the wall. But the whole purpose of that remodel was really to improve our membership experience. So I hope that you appreciate the final product there. We have a SCORE barbecue on July 14th. We're going to do that right here. It's absolutely free to all of our members. We do several of these free events, and it's just really so you guys, it's a member appreciation, but it's also so that quality networking can appear. So take advantage of that. That's when we'll do the full relaunch of our retail store in there. And then also the SCORE convention is going to be on Tuesday, October 4th. It's going to be at the Santa Clara Convention Center again. It's going to be in the same room, although we're now going to have a breakout room for all of our keynote speakers. That's a fabulous event. You hear people like Jonathan, I think we had you there, and other great speakers there as well. And we get tremendous support from the industry. Lots of cool booths, including this year, we're going to have a whole international pavilion. So we hope to see you there, and we're getting you out on time. Thanks, and have a great day. Take care.